Hello and welcome to Principles of Chemistry. We're going to jump right in here, not waste any time, and talk about chemistry just in general. So, chemistry is often called the central science, and the reason that it is called the central science is because it is very closely related to nearly every other hard science that is studied. It is very closely linked with chemical engineering, obviously. Material science is very similar to chemistry. There's a lot of chemistry in environmental science. There's a lot of chemistry in chemical physics and nanoscience. Really, the only hard sciences that are decently removed from chemistry might be something like computer science. But even there is actually chemistry involved. It's just not as much as with some of these other sciences. And so because of that, it is often called the central science, because it's so closely related to so many other kinds of science, so many other fields in science. So that then begs the question, okay, chemistry is the central science, it's related to other stuff, but what is chemistry? Well, I'm glad you asked. Some people, when they hear the word chemistry, they think of some crazy mad scientist person in the lab somewhere. Some people, when they hear the word chemistry, they just get terrified. They just think, oh, it's this terrible, awful thing that my friend told me about once because they had to take chemistry and it was just the worst thing ever and oh my goodness, I'm going to die. No, it's nothing like that. Chemistry is actually very, very different than what you normally hear and what you normally get the feel for if you just listen to either your friends or to modern society. What chemistry actually is it's the study of matter, which then begs the question, what is matter? And our answer to that is that matter is essentially anything that is composed of particles, which is to say nearly everything in the universe. There are some things that are not composed of particles, but we are not going to get into that. That is way into the weeds. Practically everything that you ever interact with in both your everyday life and in abnormal situations is made of particles. It's made of little bits of stuff. The smallest kind of particle that we are going to consider, actually we'll consider the things that the atoms are made of, but the most common thing that we'll be talking about are atoms and molecules. Molecules just being groups of atoms. And so really what chemistry is it's just the study of atoms and molecules. The idea being that if we can better understand atoms and better understand molecules, which are made of atoms, if we can understand what makes those things tick, if we can understand why they behave the way that they do, that will help us understand why large samples of atoms and molecules behave the way they do. So by understanding the really, really tiny stuff, we can better understand the larger things around us, and that is chemistry. So let's ask another question here. What's a chemical? You often hear this word thrown around. Oh, that thing has chemicals in it. Oh, I got a chemical on my hand. So just what do you think about for just a second here? What are chemicals? I bet you can tell from the images on the screen here, this is what most people think when they hear the word chemicals. The truth is, everything is a chemical. Again, anything that is made of particles, anything that has mass and volume is, technically speaking, a chemical. Now, there is kind of a modern definition of chemical that people have kind of formed in their minds, where in their minds, chemical just means something that is bad, which is really not a good definition for a chemical. Apples, made of chemicals. Lots of different kinds of chemicals. Your laptop, which you're probably watching this lecture on right now, made of chemicals. Not just the battery, although the battery does have some interesting chemistry going on, but everything in the laptop is made of chemicals. The chair you're sitting in, chemicals. The sky, the air you breathe, chemicals. The socks that maybe are on your feet, maybe not, chemicals. Your child, if you have one, it's made of chemicals. Everything is made of chemicals. What we want to do is we want to differentiate between the chemicals that do good or interesting things, like your child, for example, I hope does good and interesting things. I have children of my own, and I know that they do sometimes also do disappointing and disgusting things. But most of the time, good and interesting. So we want to be able to differentiate between those kind of chemicals and the kind of chemicals like, I don't know, carbon monoxide that do very bad things. So it's not just chemicals are bad. There are certain chemicals that can do very bad things, and there are other chemicals that do great things, but chemicals have no moral compass. They're not good or bad necessarily, they're just things that react with other things. It's how we use them and how they interact with other stuff that ends up having an effect on the world. Alright, I think that's a good, nice, short video to get us going into this class here. So in the next one, we'll take a brief look at the scientific method and talk about the differences between hypotheses and theories and laws in the scientific method. So I'll see you in the next video.